Marcus Webb never thought his biggest problem on a Tuesday morning would be anything worse than his busted alarm clock and cold coffee, but man, was he about to get schooled on how fast life could flip upside down. The 28-year-old mechanic was elbow-deep in a transmission at Rick's auto shop on the south side of Denver when his buddy Tyler came sprinting through the garage bay doors like his pants were on fire, eyes wild and phone clutched in his shaking hand. "Yo, Marcus, you gotta see this right now," Tyler gasped, nearly tripping over a floor jack. Marcus wiped the grease off his hands with a rag that had seen better days, shooting Tyler an annoyed look because the dude was always freaking out about something he saw online, whether it was some conspiracy theory or a sale at the sporting goods store. But something about Tyler's face made Marcus's stomach do a weird flip, that gut feeling you get right before everything goes south. Tyler shoved the phone in his face, and Marcus watched shaky footage of what looked like downtown, maybe 15 blocks from where they stood, showing people running and screaming while other people, or what used to be people, chased them down with this messed up, jerky way of moving that didn't look natural at all. The video showed a woman getting tackled right outside the Starbucks on Fifth Avenue, and Marcus felt his breakfast trying to make a reappearance. "Dude, that's gotta be fake, some viral marketing garbage or whatever," Marcus said, but his voice didn't sound convincing even to himself. That's when they heard it, the sound that would become the soundtrack to their nightmares, sirens, not just one or two, but what sounded like every emergency vehicle in the city going off at once, creating this wall of noise that made the tools rattle on the workshop walls. Rick, their boss, came stumbling out of his office with the radio cranked up, his weathered face pale as he turned up the volume. The emergency broadcast cut through the static, some stressed-out official telling everyone to shelter in place, lock their doors, and avoid contact with anyone showing signs of aggression or illness, but they kept cutting out and contradicting themselves, like nobody really knew what the heck was going down. Marcus felt his phone buzzing like crazy in his pocket, probably his little sister Jenna trying to reach him from her college campus across town, and his mom who lived in the suburbs with her new husband. He pulled it out and saw 17 missed calls, and his heart started hammering against his ribs like it was trying to break out. Before he could call anyone back, the power in the shop flickered twice and then died completely, leaving them standing in the dim light coming through the bay doors. "This ain't right, man, this ain't right at all," Rick muttered, grabbing his keys from the desk. The old man had been through 2 tours in the Middle East and didn't rattle easy, so seeing him spooked sent a chill down Marcus's spine. Tyler was already heading toward the doors, but Marcus grabbed his shoulder. "Hold up, we gotta think this through, we can't just bounce without a plan." But thinking got a whole lot harder when they heard screaming from the street outside, real close, the kind of screaming that meant someone was in serious trouble. Marcus moved to the bay door and peered out carefully, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Old Mrs. Patterson from the convenience store next door was stumbling into the street, and she wasn't alone. 3 people, if you could still call them that, were following her with that same weird, twitchy movement from the video, their clothes torn and stained with stuff Marcus didn't want to identify. Mrs. Patterson tripped on the curb and went down hard, and Marcus made a choice that would change everything. He grabbed a tire iron off the bench and hit the button to close the bay doors, the metal rattling down just as one of those things turned its head toward the sound, its eyes looking wrong, all clouded over and empty. "We're locking this place down," Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Right now, we survive, then we figure out the rest." The world outside had just changed forever, and Marcus Webb was about to learn what he was really made of. The 3 men stood in the darkened auto shop, breathing hard and listening to the chaos unfolding outside like some kind of nightmare they couldn't wake up from. Marcus kept his grip tight on the tire iron while his mind raced through options, none of them good. The bay doors shuddered as something slammed against them from outside, a hollow thud that echoed through the garage and made Tyler jump about a foot in the air. Oh man, we're trapped in here like sardines," Tyler stammered, running his hands through his hair like he did when he was losing it. Rick shot him a look that could have cut steel and moved toward his office. Stop freaking out and help me think, the older man growled, returning with a hunting rifle that Marcus didn't even know he kept back there, along with a box of ammunition that rattled as he set it on the workbench. I knew this day would come eventually, just thought it'd be foreign troops or economic collapse, not whatever the hell this is. Marcus wanted to ask what kind of person just casually kept a rifle at their workplace, but honestly, right now he was grateful for Rick's paranoid preparation habits. Marcus finally managed to unlock his phone with greasy, shaking fingers and pulled up his messages. Jenna had sent him a string of increasingly panicked texts from her dorm at State University, saying people were attacking students in the quad and that she'd locked herself in her room with her roommate Bailey. His mom's messages were shorter, just begging him to call her and let her know he was okay. He tried calling Jenna first, but the call wouldn't go through, just a busy signal that made his chest tighten with fear. Cell towers are probably overloaded, Rick said, checking his own phone. Everyone and their brother's trying to call someone right now. Marcus sent Jenna a text telling her to stay put, barricade the door, and don't let anyone in no matter what, hoping it would actually send through. The thought of his baby sister, just 19 years old and scared out of her mind, made him want to punch something, but that wouldn't help her or anyone else. Tyler had moved to the small window near the bathroom, peeking through the blinds at the street beyond. "Guys, there's more of them out there now, like way more," he reported, his voice cracking. "And they're just wandering around like they're looking for something, but it's like nobody's home upstairs, you know?" Marcus joined him at the window and immediately wished he hadn't. The street that had been normal and boring just an hour ago now looked like a scene from every horror movie he'd ever watched. At least a dozen of those things were stumbling around, some faster than others, and a few were crowded around something on the ground that Marcus really didn't want to look at too closely. One of them, a guy in a business suit with his tie hanging loose, turned toward the window, and Marcus got a good look at its face, skin gray and slack, mouth hanging open, dried blood crusted around its lips, and those horrible milky eyes that didn't look human anymore. "Get back from the window," Rick hissed, pulling them both away. "We don't know what gets their attention yet, could be movement, sound, smell, who knows?" The reality of their situation started settling on Marcus like a heavy blanket. They had some tools that could work as weapons, Rick's rifle with maybe 20 rounds, a small break room with a mini fridge that had some sodas and leftover pizza, and a bathroom. Not exactly a fortress, and definitely not a long-term solution. "We need to make a plan to get out of here and get to our families," Marcus said, trying to sound like he had any clue what he was doing. "My sister's stuck on campus, my mom's in Lakewood, and we can't just sit here hoping this blows over." Rick nodded slowly, loading the rifle with practiced hands. "My ex-wife's got our daughter about 30 miles north, so yeah, we all got people we need to reach. But running out there right now is suicide. We wait until dark, gather what supplies we can carry, and we move smart and quiet." Tyler looked like he wanted to argue, probably thinking about his own girlfriend who lived across town, but another crash against the bay door cut off whatever he was going to say. Marcus checked his phone again, still no signal for calls, but a text from Jenna finally came through. "Marcus, I'm scared there's something trying to break down our door, please help me." His blood turned to ice, and suddenly waiting until dark seemed like the longest time in the world. Marcus stared at his sister's text message until the words blurred, his heart hammering so hard he could hear it in his ears. Every instinct screamed at him to grab his keys and barrel out of there, to get to Jenna before whatever was outside her door got through, but Rick's hand on his shoulder kept him from doing something stupid. "Let me see," the older man said quietly, reading the message over Marcus's shoulder. "State University's what, 20 minutes from here on a good day? Through downtown? Kid, you wouldn't make it 3 blocks in your truck right now." Marcus knew Rick was right, could see it logically, but logic didn't mean squat when it was your family on the line. "I can't just leave her there, man," Marcus said, his voice rough. "She's my responsibility, she's all I got." Tyler had gone back to the window, apparently unable to stop himself from watching the horror show outside, when he suddenly ducked down fast. "Guys, there's people, actual living people, running this way down Patterson Street," he whispered urgently. All three of them scrambled to different vantage points, trying to see what Tyler was talking about without making themselves obvious. Sure enough, Marcus spotted 4 people sprinting down the middle of the street, dodging abandoned cars and those things that were starting to give chase. Leading the pack was a woman in scrubs, her dark hair flying behind her, and behind her was a heavy-set guy in a security uniform, a teenage kid in a basketball jersey, and someone in a hoodie Marcus couldn't make out clearly. The woman was yelling something and pointing toward different storefronts, probably looking for somewhere safe, and Marcus made another split-second decision. "We gotta let them in," he said, already moving toward the bay door controls. Rick grabbed his arm hard enough to bruise. "Are you crazy? We open that door, everything out there comes in with them." Marcus jerked his arm free, his mind made up. "That could be Jenna out there, that could be your daughter, and I'm not gonna hide in here while people die on our doorstep." The argument might have gone on longer, but the woman in scrubs spotted the auto shop and changed direction, heading straight for them with the others following. Marcus could see the crowd of infected turning to follow, moving faster now like they were excited or something equally messed up. "You want to help them, we do it smart," Rick said, raising his rifle and moving to the door. "Tyler, you hit that door button the second I say, and Marcus, you better be ready to crack some skulls if anything gets close." Marcus gripped his tire iron tighter, positioning himself by the door while his mouth went dry. Through the small window, he could see the woman was closer now, maybe 30 feet away, with the others trailing behind her and at least 8 of those things gaining ground. "Please, please let us in," the woman screamed, loud enough that they could hear her through the metal door. 20 feet. The security guard was falling behind, his weight working against him. 15 feet. The kid in the basketball jersey tripped, went down hard on the asphalt, and Marcus's stomach dropped. The security guard didn't hesitate, turning back and hauling the kid up by his arm, but those precious seconds cost them. The infected were right on top of them now, reaching out with grabbing hands and gnashing teeth. "Now, Tyler, now!" Rick shouted, and the bay door started rattling upward with agonizing slowness. The woman in scrubs dove through the gap when it was barely 3 feet off the ground, rolling across the concrete floor. The person in the hoodie slid through next, smaller and faster. Marcus could see the kid and the security guard running full tilt, the moaning and snarling of the infected right behind them, so close Marcus could smell something rotten and wrong. The kid made it through, gasping and crying, but the security guard stumbled right at the threshold. 2 of those things grabbed him from behind, and he screamed, a sound that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. Rick fired the rifle, the sound deafening in the enclosed space, and one of the infected dropped. Marcus didn't think, just reacted, lunging forward and swinging the tire iron into the knee of the second one, which released its grip enough for the security guard to throw himself forward into the shop. Close it, the woman in scrubs yelled, and Tyler hit the button again. The bay door started coming down, but not before 2 of those things tried to scramble under it. Marcus brought the tire iron down on the first one's head with a sickening crunch that made him want to throw up, and Rick fired again, dropping the second one. The door slammed shut with a final clang of metal on concrete, leaving them in near darkness with 6 people breathing hard and the smell of gunpowder and fear thick in the air. "Everyone okay?" Marcus asked, though he could see the security guard's uniform was torn and bloody. The man looked up at him with terrified eyes and said the words Marcus had been dreading, "I think one of them bit me." The silence that followed Wayne Porter's confession felt like it lasted forever, every person in that garage frozen as they processed what those words meant. The security guard sat slumped against the workbench, one hand pressed against his side where his uniform shirt was ripped and darkening with blood. The woman in scrubs was the first to move, dropping to her knees beside him with the kind of focused intensity that told Marcus she knew exactly what she was doing. "I'm Vanessa. I'm a nurse at Denver General, or I was until about 2 hours ago when everything went absolutely insane," she said quickly, her hands already pulling up Wayne's shirt to examine the wound. "Let me see how bad it is before everyone starts panicking." But Marcus could see Tyler already backing away toward the far wall, and honestly, he couldn't blame the guy. They'd all seen enough movies to know what a bite meant, and the thought of being trapped in here with someone who might turn into one of those things made his skin crawl. Rick kept the rifle pointed at the ground, but his fingers stayed near the trigger, his eyes locked on Wayne like he was watching a bomb that might go off any second. The teenage kid in the basketball jersey had curled up near the bathroom door, hugging his knees and rocking slightly, clearly in shock. The person in the hoodie finally pushed back their hood, revealing a young woman maybe 25 or so with short blonde hair and sharp green eyes that were taking in every detail of the garage like she was calculating escape routes. "I'm Rachel," she said tersely, "and we need to figure out real quick if bites actually turn people or if we're all just freaking out based on horror movie rules." Vanessa peeled back Wayne's torn shirt carefully, revealing a nasty gash across his ribs that was bleeding pretty good but looked more like a tear from fabric or metal than teeth marks. "Wayne, tell me exactly what happened," she said, her voice steady and professional despite everything. Wayne winced as she probed the wound, his face pale and sweaty. "I felt one of them grab me from behind, felt something rip, and I just assumed the worst," he gasped out. "Everything happened so fast, I didn't actually see if it bit me or if I caught myself on something." Vanessa pulled an alcohol wipe from her pocket, apparently nurses carried that stuff even during the apocalypse, and cleaned around the wound while Wayne hissed in pain. After what felt like the longest minute of Marcus's life, she sat back on her heels. "It's a laceration, probably from a piece of torn metal or the door track, but I don't see any bite marks," she announced. "No punctures, no teeth impressions, just a straight tear that needs stitches he's not gonna get anytime soon." The collective exhale in the room was almost loud enough to hear, and Marcus felt some of the tension drain from his shoulders, though not all of it. They still didn't know for sure if bites were actually how this thing spread, or if everyone who died came back, or what the actual rules were. "So what happened at the hospital?" Rick asked Vanessa, lowering the rifle slightly. "You see how this started?" The nurse's face went hard, and Marcus could see the exhaustion and trauma written in the lines around her eyes. "Patients started coming in early this morning with what looked like severe flu symptoms, high fever, aggression, seizures," she explained, accepting the rag Marcus handed her to wipe Wayne's blood off her hands. "Then they died, right there on the tables, and 3 minutes later they got back up and started attacking anyone close by. It spread through the ER like wildfire, patients and staff getting torn apart, and those who died just got back up and joined them. I grabbed Wayne from the security desk and we ran into Devin here on the street, and Rachel was trying to hotwire a car when we found her." The teenage kid, Devin, finally looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "My mom was supposed to pick me up from practice," he said quietly. "I waited for 2 hours and she never came, then those things showed up and Coach told us to run." Marcus felt his phone buzz and nearly dropped it checking the screen. Another text from Jenna: "They broke the door, we're hiding in the closet, Bailey won't stop crying, I can hear them in the room, please Marcus." His vision tunneled, and suddenly nothing else mattered except getting to his sister. "I need a vehicle that works and someone who knows how to navigate through this mess," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "My sister's got minutes, maybe less, and I'm going to her with or without help." Rachel stepped forward, pulling a set of lockpicks from her hoodie pocket with a slight smirk. "I may have some skills in the automobile acquisition department," she said. "And before you ask, I was a repo agent, totally legal, mostly. I know every shortcut and back alley in this city." Rick and Tyler exchanged looks, and Marcus could see them trying to decide if he'd completely lost it. Vanessa finished wrapping Wayne's wound with duct tape and a clean shop rag, then stood up and met Marcus's eyes. "State University's on the way to my apartment where my daughter's with a babysitter," she said firmly. "I'm coming with you, and I can handle myself." Outside, the moaning of the infected continued like some horrible chorus, and Marcus knew they were about to do something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The next 20 minutes were a blur of desperate preparation that felt both too long and not nearly long enough. Marcus raided the shop's storage closet for anything useful while Rick laid out weapons on the workbench like they were planning a military operation instead of a suicide run through downtown Denver. Tyler found a couple of heavy-duty flashlights, some zip ties, and a toolbox full of wrenches that could double as clubs. Rachel was studying a street map on her phone while the battery still held, tracing routes with her finger and muttering to herself about gridlock and alternate paths. Most folks would have headed for the highways when this kicked off, she explained, which means the main roads are gonna be parking lots full of abandoned cars and probably tons of those dead freaks. We stick to the side streets and industrial areas, we might actually have a chance. Marcus appreciated her confidence even if he wasn't sure he shared it, his mind stuck on Jenna hiding in a closet while monsters that used to be people prowled her dorm room. Wayne struggled to his feet despite Vanessa's protests, determination written across his broad face. "I'm coming with you," he said, cutting off her objection before she could voice it. "I got a daughter too, lives with my ex up in Fort Collins, and if there's any chance I can get to her, I need to try. Besides, you're gonna need everyone who can fight." Rick handed him a crowbar and nodded with respect. Devin hadn't moved from his spot by the bathroom, still processing everything that had happened, and honestly Marcus didn't blame the kid for checking out mentally. "Tyler, you and Devin hold down the fort here," Rick said, and Tyler's face went through about 5 different emotions before settling on relieved terror. "Keep the lights off, stay quiet, and don't open that door for anyone unless you hear our voices and we give you the all clear, got it?" The younger man nodded, gripping a wrench like it was the only solid thing in his universe. Rick slung the rifle over his shoulder and picked up a machete that apparently he also just had lying around his office, because of course he did. The plan was simple, probably too simple, but complicated plans had a way of falling apart the second reality punched them in the face. Rachel had spotted a big diesel truck parked in the lot of the warehouse across the street, the kind with a reinforced front grille that could plow through obstacles without dying. If she could get it started, and that was a big if, they'd have a vehicle capable of handling the chaos between here and the university. Marcus would drive since he knew the campus layout, Vanessa would navigate and provide medical support, Rachel would handle any mechanical issues or locked doors, and Wayne and Rick would be their muscle. They'd get Jenna and her roommate, then swing by Vanessa's apartment, then figure out the next move from there. It sounded almost doable when Rick laid it out, right up until Marcus peeked through the window again and counted at least 20 infected wandering around the immediate area, with who knew how many more out of sight. "We move fast, stay tight, and don't try to be heroes," Rick instructed, checking his rifle one more time. "You get grabbed, we'll help if we can, but if we can't, the mission keeps moving." Harsh truth, but everyone needs to know that going in. Marcus swallowed hard and nodded, gripping his tire iron until his knuckles went white. He sent one more text to Jenna, "Coming for you. Stay hidden. Love you." Then he turned off his phone to save the battery, taking a deep breath that didn't do much to calm his racing heart. Vanessa had armed herself with a knife from the break room and a wrench, her nurse's bag slung across her body. Rachel had a screwdriver in each hand and moved with the kind of coiled readiness that made Marcus think her past might be more interesting than just repossessing cars. Wayne stood ready despite his injury, the crowbar held in a white-knuckle grip. Rick moved to the bay door control, his weathered face grim. "Tyler, soon as we're out, you drop this door and don't look back. We'll bang 3 times fast, 2 times slow when we return, that's how you'll know it's us." Tyler nodded from his position deeper in the shop, holding on to Devin's shoulder like he needed the contact. Marcus positioned himself at the front of their group, every muscle tensed and ready. "All right," Rick said quietly, his finger hovering over the button. "Let's go get your sister." The bay door started its slow, incredibly loud climb upward, and immediately every infected head in the vicinity snapped toward the sound. Marcus watched them start moving toward the shop with that horrible jerky shuffle, their mouths opening in moans that raised every hair on his body. The door cleared 3 feet, 4 feet, and Rick shouted, "Go, go, go!" Marcus ducked under and came up running, the cool evening air hitting his face as his boots pounded pavement. Behind him, he heard Vanessa's breathing, Rachel's curse, Wayne's heavy footfalls, and Rick's steady presence bringing up the rear. An infected woman in a tattered dress lurched into Marcus's path, her reaching hands inches from his face before he slammed the tire iron into her shoulder and shoved her aside without stopping. Keep moving," his brain chanted. The warehouse was 50 yards away across open pavement that suddenly felt like 50 miles. more of those things were emerging from between cars and buildings, drawn by the noise and movement, creating a closing circle of gnashing teeth and dead eyes. Rachel pulled ahead, running like her life depended on it because it absolutely did, reaching the truck and immediately dropping to work on the door lock with her picks. A teenager, couldn't have been more than 16 when he died, stumbled into Wayne's path, and the security guard brought the crowbar around in a devastating arc that dropped the thing instantly. Marcus didn't let himself think about the fact that these were people, used to be people, might have had families and dreams and futures, because that way led to hesitation and hesitation led to death. They reached the truck in a cluster, Rachel swearing as she worked the lock while the rest of them formed a defensive circle. An infected man in mechanic's coveralls, the cruel irony not lost on Marcus, grabbed at Vanessa, who twisted away and drove her knife up under its chin with the precision of someone who knew anatomy. The lock clicked and Rachel yanked the door open, diving into the cab. "Gimme 30 seconds, she yelled, disappearing under the steering column. Rick fired twice, dropping infected that were getting too close, the shots echoing off the warehouse walls. 20 seconds. Marcus swung at anything that got within range, his arms already burning. 15 seconds. Wayne took a hit that spun him around, but he stayed on his feet, roaring and swinging wild. 10 seconds. The engine turned over once, twice, then died. Come on, Rachel's voice filtered out. 5 seconds, and there were too many of them now, too many dead faces and grabbing hands. The engine roared to life with a beautiful rumble, and Rachel screamed, "Get in." Marcus grabbed the passenger door, hauling himself up while reaching back to pull Vanessa up behind him. Wayne and Rick piled into the back seat just as hands slammed against the windows, and Rachel threw the truck into reverse, plowing through 3 infected before spinning the wheel and punching the gas, leaving the warehouse lot and its horrors in a spray of gravel and screeching tires. Rachel drove like she was possessed, weaving the big diesel truck through abandoned cars and shuffling infected with the kind of skill that came from years of chasing down vehicles in tight spaces. Marcus gripped the oh-crap handle above the passenger door, his eyes scanning every intersection and alley for threats while his mind screamed at Rachel to go faster, even though she was already pushing 60 on streets that were never meant for that kind of speed. The truck's reinforced grille proved its worth when an infected businessman stumbled into their path and bounced off the front bumper like a bowling pin, disappearing under the wheels with a thump that Marcus felt in his chest. "Don't think about it," Vanessa said from behind him, reading his expression. "They're already dead, you're just helping them stay that way." Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the strain underneath, the same fear and desperation they were all choking on. The streets of Denver had transformed into something out of a fever dream, familiar landmarks turned sinister by the chaos that had consumed the city in just a few hours. Cars sat abandoned with doors hanging open, some still running and filling the air with exhaust. Bodies lay in the street, some still, others beginning that horrible twitching movement that meant they were coming back. Fires burned unchecked in at least 3 buildings Marcus could see, black smoke rising into the late afternoon sky. How did this happen so fast? Wayne asked from the back seat, pressing a hand against his bandaged side. This morning everything was normal, and now it's like the whole world just gave up. Rick stared out the window, his rifle ready. Whatever this is, it moves quick and it don't give second chances. We saw it start at the shop, folks getting bit or killed, then getting back up within minutes. You get enough of those in a dense population, it spreads like wildfire through dry grass. Rachel took a hard right onto Colfax Avenue, and Marcus's stomach dropped at what they saw. The main drag was absolutely packed with stalled traffic, and weaving between the cars were hundreds of infected, maybe thousands, drawn together by some instinct Marcus didn't want to understand. "We can't go through that," Vanessa breathed. "There's too many." Rachel was already spinning the wheel, taking them down a side street that led through a residential neighborhood. "I know another way, gonna add maybe 5 minutes, but it beats becoming lunch." They passed houses where Marcus could see people peering out from behind curtains, survivors barricaded inside and probably terrified out of their minds. He wanted to stop, to help them, to do something, but Jenna's face kept flashing in his mind and he knew with sick certainty that he couldn't save everyone. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, stood in a front yard staring at the street with those horrible milky eyes, her pink dress stained with blood, and Marcus had to look away before his resolve crumbled completely. The radio, which had been mostly static and emergency broadcasts on repeat, suddenly crackled with a new voice. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Davies broadcasting from Fort Carson to any survivors in the Denver metropolitan area. The infection is widespread but containment efforts are underway. Military personnel are establishing safe zones at the following locations: Mile High Stadium, the State Capitol Building, and Denver International Airport. Make your way to these locations for evacuation and protection. Repeat, this is not a drill, seek shelter at designated safe zones immediately." The message started over, and Marcus met Rick's eyes in the rearview mirror. "You believe that?" Marcus asked. Rick's expression was skeptical. "Military moves slow, and this thing moves fast. Even if they got safe zones set up, you really want to bet your life they can hold them? Besides, we got people to collect first." Marcus nodded, his decision already made. Safe zones didn't mean squat if Jenna wasn't with him. They were getting close to the university now, and Marcus could see the campus buildings rising ahead, red brick and modern glass that looked untouched by the nightmare except for the smoke coming from somewhere near the student center. Rachel slowed the truck as they approached the main entrance, where the security gate hung twisted and broken, several bodies sprawled near the guard booth in positions that spoke of violence and panic. "Which building?" Rachel asked, her hands tight on the wheel. "Morrison Hall, east side of campus near the library," Marcus answered, his heart hammering. "Third floor, room 317. They rolled past the entrance and immediately saw that the campus was just as bad as the rest of the city, maybe worse because of how many students had been packed together when everything went down. Infected students wandered across the quad in their hoodies and backpacks, looking like they were heading to class except for the blood and the vacant eyes and the way they moved like broken puppets. Wayne pointed toward a cluster of dormitories ahead. "There, that's gotta be Morrison, the one with the blue trim." Marcus could see the building, could see broken windows and a door hanging off its hinges on the ground floor, could see movement inside that might be survivors or might be infected. Rachel navigated around an overturned campus security car and headed for the dormitory, but as they got closer, Marcus saw something that made his blood freeze. The third-floor windows of Morrison Hall were broken out completely, and he could see figures moving inside, way too many figures, shambling back and forth in the hallways. "Jenna," he whispered, fumbling for his phone with shaking hands. He powered it on, praying he wasn't too late, praying that somehow his little sister had stayed hidden and quiet and safe. The phone seemed to take forever to boot up, and when it finally did, he saw one new message timestamped 3 minutes ago. He opened it with dread curling in his stomach, and read 3 words that changed everything: roof. "Hurry. Please." Marcus felt like he could breathe again for the first time in 10 minutes, knowing Jenna was alive and thinking smart enough to get to the roof, but that relief lasted about 2 seconds before the reality of their situation crashed back down. "She's on the roof," he told the others, his voice tight. "We gotta get up there somehow." Rachel circled the building slowly, scanning for options while infected students noticed the truck and started converging on them with that horrible focused hunger. The main entrance was a death trap, completely overrun, and the fire escapes on the side of the building were too high to reach from the ground. Then Vanessa pointed to the back of Morrison Hall where a maintenance ladder was bolted to the brick, leading up to the roof access. "There, that's our way up, but someone's gotta clear a path and someone's gotta climb." Marcus already had his door open before she finished talking, tire iron in hand and fear pushed down deep where it couldn't slow him down. They piled out of the truck fast, Rick immediately dropping 2 infected that got too close while Wayne used his crowbar to cave in the skull of what used to be a professor still wearing his tweed jacket and glasses. Marcus ran for the ladder, his boots pounding pavement, very aware of how exposed they were in the open parking lot behind the dorm. Rachel stayed with the truck, keeping the engine running and laying on the horn in short bursts to draw infected away from Marcus's path. And it worked maybe too well because suddenly dozens of those things were shuffling toward the noise from every direction. Marcus hit the ladder and started climbing, not looking down, just hand over hand and focusing on the next rung. Below him, he heard Vanessa shout a warning and Rick's rifle bark twice, but he kept climbing because stopping meant dying and dying meant Jenna was on her own. The ladder seemed to go on forever, 3 stories feeling more like 30, and Marcus's arms burned with the effort while his tire iron banged against his leg with each step. He finally reached the roof access, a metal door that was thankfully unlocked, and burst through it onto the tar and gravel surface. "Jenna," he yelled, spinning in a circle and scanning the rooftop. "Marcus, oh my God, Marcus." His sister's voice came from behind an AC unit, and then she was running toward him with another girl right behind her, both of them crying and terrified but alive, beautifully and miraculously alive. Marcus caught Jenna in a hug that nearly knocked them both over, feeling her shake against him with sobs she'd been holding back. "I knew you'd come, I knew it," she gasped into his shoulder. "Bailey and we thought we were gonna die. They were everywhere, breaking down doors and attacking people in the hallways." Bailey, a small redhead with torn jeans and mascara running down her face, looked like she was barely holding it together. "There's others up here too," she said, pointing across the roof where Marcus spotted 4 more students huddled near the far edge, watching them with desperate hope. "We all ran up here when the stairwells filled with those things, been stuck for almost 2 hours." Marcus wanted to help them, wanted to save everyone, but the sound of gunfire from below reminded him they were on borrowed time. "Anyone who wants to live, you follow me right now and you do exactly what I say," he called out to the group. 3 of them scrambled over immediately, 2 guys and a girl who looked like athletes, but the 4th student, a heavy-set kid in a gaming t-shirt, shook his head. "I'm gonna wait for the military. They said on the radio there's safe zones," he insisted. Marcus didn't have time to argue, didn't have time to explain that maybe the safe zones were real or maybe they were death traps, so he just nodded and turned back to the ladder. Getting 7 people down a maintenance ladder while infected swarmed below was exactly as terrifying as it sounded, but Rachel had positioned the truck directly under the ladder's base and Rick and Wayne had created a defensive perimeter using the truck as cover. Marcus went first, then helped Jenna and Bailey, followed by the 3 other students who moved with the kind of speed that fear provides. Vanessa fired something she'd grabbed from the truck, a nail gun loaded with 3-inch nails that turned out to be brutally effective at close range, dropping an infected that got past Rick's rifle. They crammed into the truck like clowns in a circus car, bodies pressed together and breathing hard, and Rachel didn't wait for everyone to close their doors before she punched the gas and sent them fishtailing out of the parking lot. An infected student slammed into the passenger side so hard it cracked the window, its face pressed against the glass in a horrible parody of Curiosity before they left it behind in a squeal of tires. "Vanessa, where's your daughter?" Marcus asked once he could think beyond immediate survival. The nurse was squeezed between Jenna and one of the rescued students, her face pale but determined. "Apartment complex on Downing Street, maybe 10 minutes from here if the roads are clear," she said. "Babysitter's name is Mrs. Chen, older lady, tough as nails, she'll keep Emma safe." Rachel nodded and changed direction, navigating through side streets that were less clogged but no less dangerous. They passed scenes of horror and heroism, saw people defending their homes with whatever weapons they could find, saw infected feeding on bodies in the street, saw the city tearing itself apart in real time. The 3 students they'd rescued from the roof sat silent and shell-shocked, processing trauma they'd carry forever. Jenna held Marcus's hand so tight it hurt, and he let her because he needed the contact just as much. Vanessa's apartment building came into view, a modest 3-story walk-up that looked relatively intact except for broken glass in the lobby. They could see movement inside, shapes shuffling past windows, and Vanessa's face went white. "Emma's on the 2nd floor, apartment 212, she said, already reaching for the door handle." This time they all went, leaving Rachel with the truck and the rescued students, because they'd become a unit somehow in the past few hours, bound together by survival and shared nightmare. The lobby held 4 infected that Rick and Wayne handled with efficient brutality while Marcus and Vanessa rushed the stairs. The 2nd floor hallway was clear but they could hear sounds from other apartments, screaming and banging and things Marcus tried not to imagine. Vanessa reached 212 and pounded on the door. "Mrs. Chen, it's Vanessa, open up." For a horrible moment nothing happened, and Marcus saw the hope die in Vanessa's eyes, but then locks clicked and the door cracked open to reveal an elderly Asian woman holding a meat cleaver and a little girl of maybe 5 with dark pigtails clutching her leg. "Mommy!" Emma shrieked, and Vanessa swept her daughter up in her arms, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Chen lowered the cleaver, her expression fierce. "I keep her safe like I promise," she said in accented English. "But we cannot stay here, building is filling with sick people." They made it back to the truck with Mrs. Chen in tow, now carrying 11 people in a vehicle meant for 6, but nobody complained because being cramped beat being dead. As Rachel drove them away from the apartment building, away from the university, away from the auto shop that felt like a lifetime ago instead of just hours, Marcus looked at the faces around him. Jenna, safe beside him. Vanessa, holding Emma like she'd never let go. Bailey and the rescued students, traumatized but alive. Wayne, bleeding but fighting. Rick, steady and unshakable. Mrs. Chen, fierce and protective. Rachel, skilled and sarcastic even facing the apocalypse. And somewhere back at the shop, Tyler and Devin waiting for their return. The sun was setting now, painting the smoke-filled sky in shades of orange and red that would have been beautiful if they didn't illuminate the end of the world as they knew it. "Where do we go?" Jenna asked quietly, the question they were all thinking. Marcus looked at Rick, who met his eyes in the mirror and shrugged. "Away from the city, somewhere defensible, somewhere we can hole up and figure out what's next," the older man said. "This thing ain't ending anytime soon, so we adapt, we survive, and we keep moving." Rachel pointed the truck north, toward the mountains visible in the distance, toward uncertainty and danger and whatever came next. Marcus squeezed Jenna's hand and felt her squeeze back, and realized that somewhere in the chaos and horror of the worst day of his life, he'd found something unexpected. He'd found people worth surviving for, worth fighting for, worth facing the nightmare beside. The world had changed forever, shadows had fallen across everything he'd known, but they were still breathing, still moving, still refusing to give up. The story of survival had only just begun, and Marcus Webb was determined to make sure it didn't end anytime soon. Behind them, Denver burned and the infected roamed and civilization crumbled, but ahead of them lay possibility, slim and dangerous as it was. They'd lost everything familiar, but they'd gained something harder and more precious: purpose, community, and the will to see another sunrise. Whatever tomorrow brought, they'd face it together, and that would have to be enough. The end.